We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Rise up! Team Rise! Rise up! Team Rise!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL wire site that covers, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, episode 788, with my co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, as we talk about, well, the voluntary part of the offseason is over. We are at mandatory minicamp. It started, we're recording on a Tuesday after they had their first practice. They reported on Monday, practice Tuesday, set to practice on Wednesday. And guess what, Seth? The holdout, quote unquote holdout, is over. Jacoby Brissett showed up. Josh Sweat showed up. Ian Rappaport came out and said Brissett is showing up basically to not be fined. He neither participated in Tuesday's practice. Mike LaFleur, PR trained. One, he talked about Josh Sweat and said that he would have been out there if he could have. They didn't have the appropriate ramp run. He's been training on his own supposedly, but he didn't have the appropriate ramp up time at the facility to justify throwing him out there on the practice field. But when asked the same thing about Jacoby Brissett, if Brissett would have practiced, he didn't answer. So it sounded like Brissett was showing up to do a hold-in. We've had lots of conversations on this show and off the show about both Brissett and Sweat. How much of a distraction is all of this? And them showing up, does it help with the distraction or lack of distraction?
No, I mean, it's just like one of those situations where I think the players get it. I think the distraction is more, I don't want to say for the fans, because the fans understand what the game is, right? But there's this reality of a guy that went 1-11. There's this reality of a guy that's 2-15 over his last, 17 starts at two different stops. That's going to be 34 this year. That's already made over $60 million in his career. That's never had a season above 500 as a starter. That's holding in that his 17-game average is a 5-12 quarterback. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's just the reality that it makes the Arizona Cardinals look like a completely unserious organization, because there's no other organization in the NFL, even those with bad quarterback play, that would have gotten themselves into this predicament, right?
Absolutely, because here's the thing. They made the mistake because they had the perfect setup. They jettisoned their their starting quarterback in Kyler Murray. They hired a brand new head coach. They signed another quarterback in Gardner Minshew. It was simply the perfect scenario where you simply say, this is a quarterback competition. And once you say there's a quarterback competition, then how is Jacoby Brissett going to hold out for more money when he has to earn his job? Instead, apparently it wasn't initially. They didn't tell him initially that he was to expect to be the QB1. But at some point before offseason workouts that occurred, and that is when, and we joked about it when Gardner Minshew signed his contract, when it was for what would be more money than Jacoby's making this year, that we said, we joked about a potential Jacoby Brissett holdout, and lo and behold is what we got. But the Cardinals botched the situation from the beginning, because all they had to do when they signed Gardner Minshew is to not have John Gambadoro come out and report that he was signed to be Jacoby's backup. All you had to do was say, we signed Gardner, who's an experienced starter in this league. Jacoby, experienced in this league. You're going to have a quarterback competition, and we'll see. We'll let things play out in the spring and the summer. Who will be the starting quarterback? And sure, Jacoby might not be thrilled, but it takes away any perception. And if he were to hold out with that, he would look like a complete jerk. And we understand that Jacoby Brissett, as a player, from his perspective, he should be looking for a new contract. He was told he would be the starting quarterback, and if he's going to be the starting quarterback, he should be paid like it. At $4.9 million is the lowest compensation for a starting quarterback this year. And Kyler's only getting one. No, that's not true. Kyler's getting paid $37 million this year. So you look at quarterbacks across the league, based on this year, the way contracts are structured, Geno Smith on up, $19.5 million or above is what, Aaron Rodgers, $22 million. Malik Willis, $22.5 million with his 4 or 7 career starts. He's got so much less experience than Jacoby Brissett. And Jacoby, I'm going to be a starter. Well, then pay me like a starter, especially when he's at his age in his career where this is the last shot to get it. And he knows that the Cardinals are looking to move off of him, and so he needs to get paid as much and as soon as he can. This is 100%. This is the thing that from the player perspective makes sense. It 100% makes sense if you know you're going to be the starting quarterback. And the thing is that players are talking about him like the QB1. The organization has leaked it. He's been told this. I don't know. Then, of course, they should pay him more. But at the same time, there's no reason to pay him more, because he isn't any better than Gardner Minshew, who is simply a 3 years younger version of Brissett. And Seth, you brought up, I think it was last show or the show before, we look at Brissett's 2-15 record over the last 2 seasons. Minshew is 3 years younger than Brissett, entering year 8. Okay, take the last 3 years away from Jacoby Brissett's career. Minshew's 17-30. Brissett was 18-30 as a starter in the same entering year 8 of his career. Minshew had more touchdown passes and more interceptions, had more passing yards. Minshew was, by and large, a far superior quarterback in terms of production and excitement, but perhaps not of reliability through the first 7 years of his career compared to Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby, in his year 7 season, had gone, I think, 4-7 for the Browns, had an okay year, and parlayed that into a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Washington then football team, I believe it was still, before the Commanders, and was supposed to compete with Sam Howell for a starting job. That's what he believed was going to be the case. He didn't win that job, and that's what led to the backup job in New England, the backup job with the Cardinals, which turned into starting 12 games. And so knowing that, that's what they should have done in the beginning. And the Cardinals botched it from the beginning. And if they'd have done that, I don't think we'd be having any of the drama that we're having right now.
Well, and that's just it. And that's why, pundits and the sports betting community and things of that nature are taking shots at the Cardinals. And to be fair, it's warranted, because only the Arizona Cardinals could be in a contract dispute with a guy that is a 5-win-a-season quarterback over a 17-game season sample size. I mean, only the Arizona Cardinals are the team that find themselves dealing with a hold in, hold out situation with a 5-12 lifetime quarterback in the regular season. Like, that just doesn't happen with good organizations. And so now the Cardinals are in the position of like, okay, you and I talked a little bit about this off the air. There is this reality, Jess, that either Mike LaFleur or Monty Ossenfort or the combined, brain power, brain trust of the Arizona Cardinals did not want Jacoby Brissett to start this year. They allegedly were in up to a point on Malik Willis. They allegedly were in on Jimmy Garoppolo.
And things broke down with Garoppolo. So it was either a case of not enough money or the role. Like Jimmy, maybe Jimmy didn't want to come in and be Jacoby's backup. He's willing to back up Matthew Stafford, but the guy that once was behind him on the depth chart, but yeah, and that's the funny thing is Garoppolo, by all accounts, was LaFleur's guy. Like kind of like Kendrick Bourne was as a signing. Garoppolo would have made 100% sense because the relationship they had in LA with the relationship that they had in San Francisco. Yeah.
Well, and so you look at that outcome, and we've talked about this. We talked about it with the Kyler Murray going on IR. We talked about it with all of the situations. The Cardinals specifically, 98.7 Sports, they use them as kind of a sounding board to get the perspective of the fans. We talked about it last year. They leaked about Jonathan Gannon potentially being retained, and fans were kind of up in arms about that, right? Then they leaked about, the benching / injury of Kyler Murray and going with Jacoby Brissett, and the fan reaction was very positive about that. And so they like to use that as kind of a sounding board to see what the overall reaction is. And so when they leaked the information to Josh Weinfuss and later John Gambadoro, and the reaction was like, yeah, it makes sense. Why wouldn't Jacoby be the starter, right? Like, why? I mean, did anybody expect if Jacoby Brissett was on the roster, he wasn't going to start this year? All of that led to this moment, right? And so it's like, instead of just being a well-run organization that makes football decisions based on football, they are the Arizona Cardinals, and they're like, hey, let's see what the fans think.
Well, funny thing is, like, all the goodwill that Brissett built up for his play last year, the career high in touchdown passes, passing yards, Trey McBride and Mike Wilson having career years, all of that goodwill is gone. The second he got a little greedy, and I'm not saying we're not saying that his desire for a new deal was on for if he's the starting quarterback, he deserves more money. But the way he's going about it has made the same fan base that was ready to be off of Kyler, they're 100% ready to be off of Jacoby Brissett. They are ready for Gardner Minshew / Carson Beck. And that's a misplay on his his part.
Well, I also think that he didn't get that their whole thing about like, hey, you're going to be the starter was, hey, you're going to be the starter until
you're not.
Until we go to Carson Beck. Like, this guy could continue his pace from last year, which, his 17-game pace was like 5,200 yards. And if the wins don't come with it, guess what? They're going to move on. Like, you cannot, I don't care how many yards a guy throws for, how many touchdowns a guy, like, if you are
0-7. If
Yeah,
you're 0-7 and 0-7 and then 1-18 over 19 games.
right. Like there's nobody that can justify keeping you the starter. And so that seems again like the Cardinals hedge here, right? Like, hey, Jacoby, you're the starter, but until we go to Carson Beck, and then you're not the starter anymore. And so it does seem like kind of that is what the dispute is. I don't even feel like the Cardinals are like, no, you don't deserve a raise. I think the Cardinals are like, yeah, you deserve a raise, but like kind of reflecting what we think of you, what the NFL thinks of you, not what you want, right? And so you mentioned the numbers, right? The low end starter is $20 million. The Cardinals are going, well, you went 1-11, you're 2-15 your last 17. You don't win very often. You average 5 wins a season over 17 games. You know what? Let's do this. Let's give you $10 million, guarantee it all, and move forward. And he's probably like, no, I'm not taking half of what the low end starting quarterback is. And it's at that point, it is unreasonable from the Cardinals' perspective, because now you are just straight up saying like, hey, we don't expect you to start the whole season, right? Like that's kind of where it's at now. And so for all of that, I don't blame Jacoby, but also I don't blame the Cardinals, because they're going, dude, you're not going to start the whole season for us. You went 1-11 last year. You went 2-15 over your last 17 starts. Like you would have to, in a schedule like this with the roster like what we have, you would have to perform miracles on the field to get them to, even a 5-3 record through their first 8.
Right.
To justify staying with you, to continue to use you as the starter. So yeah, we're not going to give you $20 million. And to me, that's where this all comes from. Again, if you go in, you say, hey, Jacoby, we're going to give you a raise. Here's $12.5 million guaranteed. But here's the thing, you're not the starter. You're going to earn the starting position. But of course, then you do that, right? And Gardner somehow wins the quarterback battle. And guess what happens?
You've got a $12 million backup.
Right. And or Gardner Minshew goes, hey, I want some of that. Like that's what the issue is. And again, this only could happen to the Arizona Cardinals. There's no other franchise that would have botched the quarterback position this offseason as badly as the Cardinals did, and just not had an out in any way. Yeah. Because now the out is just, well, we just cut him or trade him, right? We just move on. And as much as that makes sense, and Jess and I aren't saying that's what they should do, but as much as that makes sense from like, okay, like this is kind of getting absurd. Like we just need to have the focus on the season, the players that are here, seeing what we have in Carson Beck, hoping that we can do enough to make Jeremiah Love worthy of picking 3rd overall. Like instead of focusing on that, you're going, okay, well, our starting quarterback's here, but he's not doing anything. And we're going to pay him, but we can't really settle on like that. Like you said, it's just a distraction that's unneeded for a team that isn't very good anyways. So like, you don't have the time to continue to have distractions. You need to be preparing to hopefully shock everybody in week 1.
Yeah. And the Sweat on the Sweat side of things, like there are some whispers. Like our buddy reported that he requested a trade after Gannon was fired. Okay, so he wasn't happy. Dan Graziano suggested in trade candidates, and Graziano's pretty dialed in around the league, that Sweat is letting people know he's not happy. Now, everything that we've heard from the organization, nothing we've heard from local media is anything other than he's been doing his own training and now he's with the team. He would have been out there if he could, and we'll see how that goes. Ultimately, it might be a simple case of, well, I know the defense, I'm not happy, I'm just going to, that might be it. But it doesn't seem to be so distracting. It does feel like much more of an unknown, which is weird, that all we are getting is one report early in the offseason, whispers, other than the fact that Ian Rappaport felt it necessary to come out, and we know that these big national guys are fed from front offices. And so even though the internet's been abuzz about possible trades for Josh Sweat, that they took trade calls and things like that, he comes out, they're not trading him. That might very well be the case. They're not trading him. That doesn't mean Sweat's happy. And so we'll have to go for that. But coming next on the Rest of the Series podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk to the Web, there were other things said after practice, what we saw at practice, to talk about for that first day of minicamp. That's coming on next on Rest of the Series. We're back on the Rise of Seer podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk to the Web, as we talk about mandatory minicamp, Tuesday's practice. We heard from Mike LaFleur, Trey McBride. We heard from Mac Wilson. We heard from Paris Johnson. I think the most notable thing about everything is, and this is something we noticed from OTAs, it's a little bit different than under Jonathan Gannon, a little bit different than Cliff Kingsbury, is that the rookies, they're top rookies, okay, mind you. So Jeremiah Love, Chase Besantis, they're not working with the first teams yet. They have, unless they're doing it only when the media is not there to see practices, they are being worked in with the second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. And so they're going with veterans in all positions. So Tyler Algier, RB1, Isaiah Adams, starting right guard currently. I don't mind this approach, honestly. I don't. Because LaFleur goes, hey, rookies will play when they're ready. And so right now it's, okay, can you not make mistakes? And so you don't throw them up they don't throw them into the starting lineup necessarily, that they have to work their way up. I'm pretty sure the goal is Jeremiah Love will have a significant role on the starting offense, and ideally Chase Besantis beats out Isaiah Adams. If Besantis doesn't beat out Isaiah Adams, well, that could also be a positive, because it could simply mean that Isaiah Adams has made significant progress. Or it could be a bad thing, because it means that Besantis isn't ready to start as a rookie. But in either case, do you notice anything different about this approach than in years past?
You know, it's interesting, and you do hope, and I think you're the same way as me. I think we do hope that this is a decision that's being made by the coaching staff, right? Josh Breyer, obviously, the offensive line coach.
Justin Pryor.
Sorry. The offensive line coach, obviously Michael LaFleur, Nathaniel Hackett, those guys saying like, hey, they're still the veterans. Like, let's see them in here. And this isn't a situation where the front office is saying like, hey, we need to get something out of these guys, like figure it out for us. Right. Because here's the deal too with Besantis, right? He's super young.
Yeah.
So him not even starting this year, I know it would freak Arizona Cardinals fans out because it's the 34th pick. How are you not starting the 34th pick? But hopefully Isaiah Adams or John Gaines or these guys are worthy, and Besantis truly beats them out, as opposed to it's just a second round pick, the 34th overall pick. He's going to get to play no matter what. I always like that approach. Like, let the rookies earn it.
Yeah.
And it's a different situation than kind of what Jeremiah Love's coming into, right? Where Trey Benson and James Conner are not even healthy. So, with Jeremiah Love, it's like, well, we have Jeremiah Love and we have these other two guys. And obviously Tyler Algier is getting, the first team reps, but like Love is going to be higher on the depth chart right now than most rookies would be.
Correct.
Coming into the Cardinals just because of the situation. If Adams was coming off an injury or hurt, and they did slide Besantis in, I think that's reasonable. But with where Besantis or where Adams is at, how he kind of ended last year, come in, make Besantis earn it, have him truly beat him out, and then then you do feel better about it as well, right? Hey, we the way we graded him, and will there be some skewing to it? I'm sure there will, but the way we graded him, Besantis won the position. We're going with him, as opposed to all right, don't let us down, rookie.
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. Paris Johnson talked about a potential contract extension. He played it perfectly, saying, well, I'm not worried about, I'm not focused on that. That doesn't help me block the guy in front of me. So he's taken the approach of, now we've heard it. He said at one point he wanted to be a $40 million man tackle, a $40 million a year tackle. He said that at one point last season. But when it comes to contract talks, he's saying, hey, with tackles, they come on their timing, and they're usually the right times. And I think what that shows is an extreme amount of security in himself. One, he's got the 5th-year extension, so he's already got $19 million locked up in 2027. But I think from a perspective of him as a player and confidence in himself, he also knows that if the deal doesn't happen now, if it doesn't happen in August or July, and he plays to what he believes he can play, the longer this gets put off and the better he plays, it just means his price tag goes up, and he's okay with that.
Right. And you look at it, right. I know people are going to get upset about this, but it's hard to justify signing Paris Johnson to a 4-year, $135 million contract right now. It just is. He didn't have a great season last year, but he was dealing with some nagging injuries. His season started off well, then he dealt with some nagging injuries before injuries beset him. The year before that, he was playing well, and then missed time again. This last year, in 12 games, he had probably his worst overall season, and that's what the issue becomes in terms of how you're going about this situation. And what I mean by that is there's no way that the Cardinals are moving on from Paris Johnson, but it's very hard to justify making him the highest paid, if not one of the highest paid, but just based on how salaries work and things like that, probably the highest paid for the moment tackle in the NFL, when he has not made a Pro Bowl. And I know the Pro Bowl means less than it used to, but he just hasn't made a Pro Bowl, hasn't been an All-Pro, and has only played in 26 games between the last 2 years. Those things make it harder to justify paying him, but you can't move on because obviously you have nothing to replace him with. And that investment was so big and so important because you have missed out on
Will Anderson.
Maybe the second best pass rusher in the NFL in Will Anderson. And so these things all kind of flow together into, hey, you guys better figure this out and hope he becomes a 15 plus a game year guy that is earning Pro Bowl and all pro level nods, because that is what you passed on in Will Anderson, and that is what you're going to do pay him. So that's, that is honestly the hard part of the Paris Johnson situation, is that for the Cardinals just right now, it doesn't make sense to make him the highest paid guy. And I'm not saying, you kind of spelled it out, and we're not saying he will say this, but like, he wants to set a record, because it means that he's playing at the highest level possible, right? Like, he wants to be the guy that earns the biggest contract as a left tackle in NFL history. Again, it'll be for a short while, but he wants to earn that, and there's just no way, no how that's even a plausibility right now. So I think the way that both sides are going about this one makes the most sense, because if you're the Cardinals, let's be honest, the 15th ranked tackle is where he's graded out about, based on, depending on the sites you look at. So right around the league average for left tackles. That's probably only like, 15 to 17 million a year type thing. Paris doesn't want that. Like, no, Paris isn't going to be like, yeah, I'll take a 4
He's going to make 19 next year.
Right. He's not going to be like, yeah, I'll take a 4-year, 60, 70, maybe $75 million a year. Right. He's going to be like, no, I want, and again, this isn't a greed thing. He wants to be able to justify being the highest paid tackle in NFL history for his short stint at that spot. And that means he needs to play, again, at least 15 games, ideally 17. Well, that would be ideal. And he needs to clean up what was a downish year last year overall. And if he can do that, then I do think that contract's going to come. If he can't do that, it's going to be interesting, because then you get into the franchise tag thing, and then we're talking $30+ million a year, right, Jess? Like,
yeah.
And so are you going to want to rent Paris year to year for $30 million? Especially, I mean, because if you think about this, Jess, he plays this season. He has a good, not great year. You're coming in, you're probably saying, hey, we'll give you $100 million, right? $25 million a year. He's like, no, I want to be recognized for what I believe is my play. The Cardinals can't do that. I mean, there's no justification for it at that point. Now, if he comes out and he's a Pro Bowler and all pro and plays all 17 games, hell yeah. I mean, you got to pay that guy his money, because he's only 25 years old. You get him locked up 5 years, $160 million with 120 guaranteed. Guess what? You've got your left tackle for the next 5 years. He'll have played 9 years for the Arizona Cardinals, and you have a franchise left tackle. Like, that's unheard of for this franchise.
Yeah, and so he took that same sort of mindset when he entered his last year at Ohio State. There were rumblings about NFL, and so he just put blinders on and focused on playing well. And guess what? He ended up going 6th overall to the Cardinals, which played out pretty well. If that continues, he will get himself paid as well. Anything else of note that stood out?
No, I think this is just an interesting offseason, man. Like, it's unfortunate the way it's been playing out for a lot of reasons. And most of it is that it's just, there hasn't been a lot of positive press. Whether it was the Jeremiah Love pick that was, universally loved in the sense of everybody loves the player and everybody's going, what are the Arizona Cardinals doing? To the, obviously the Jacoby Brissett hold in, like there hasn't been a lot of positive things. So it would be nice if they could just go back to being the Arizona Cardinals that are bad or unremarkable, if you will, and stop being the Arizona Cardinals that are doing goofy things that only really bad franchises do, like having a quarterback hold out or taking a running back third overall when you don't have offensive line help, you have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, so on and so forth. So, I just want to get back to it being the Cardinals aren't very good, but they're also kind of boring and uninteresting, and not the, oh my gosh, the Cardinals have Jacoby Brissett holding out. What is happening? Like it would just be nice to, kind of fly under the radar for a little bit.
The normal mini camp things of everyone, hey, the offense is going well, we're installing, the rookie's looking good, everyone's doing great, just all the positive stuff instead of this nonsense. But with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise of Seared podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. We'll have another show later this week. We'll talk about Michael Wilson, potential contract extension, and more that comes from minicamp. Until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise up, See Red.